Hello.
Hello,
Ah, Hi.
how are you?
How are you doing? Fine.
Thank you. How are things in Spain?
Uh, I think that all the attention in Europe has moved to Russia and Ukraine.
Mm,
So things are okay. And nobody's talking about COVID anymore.
mm,
I think that the incidence is going down, but I really don't know exactly which are the numbers. We are still wearing masks, as probably the rest of Europe, keeping social distancing, but other than that, I'll tell you, COVID has gone into a second position now.
yeah, yeah.
It's really a pity every time that you have a look at the news. Oh, by the way, I enjoyed very much because Nicholas sent the podcast that you did to this Russian hematologist
Mm,
Ukrainian hematologist in Kiev.
yeah,
It was really very good.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I don't. It's hard to talk about it actually. I think, and because it's on the one hand you want to help, on the other hand, what can you do? It's politics, and during war times, everything can happen, and you're just sitting there and
Yeah,
It's just
but
mad
this
to
is
think that
one.
this is 2022 and it's actually happening.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I think that even in 2022, we have crazy people that maybe have got even crazier just because of COVID and all the COVID situation, which has not been really very healthy from a mental point of view for any of us. And you are right. I think that everybody wants to help. It's very difficult to understand which is the best way of helping these people. This is one of the things that has been discussed very so much in the last EBMT board meetings and executive committee meetings, how these people can be helped. And it's very difficult because you say, okay, the first thought, you send money, but where are you going to send the money? Where is this money going to go when it goes to Ukraine in this specific situation that probably everything everything can be done and nobody is basically going to control all these type of things. So let's say one of the ideas that we were discussing, but I really don't know if that will happen, it will go into reality, is to try to help, not exactly right now, but in the next few months or eventually years, all the potential patients, candidates for transplantation, and try to move these patients outside the country and then send them around Europe, because of course EBMT is reaching many, many European countries. So try to develop this type of transplantation-oriented health corridors for these patients. Which of course that represents a lot of organization, that represents also money, because you also have to move the families and some family support. So this is one of the projects that probably it's probably the stronger one, and we think that maybe we can help on that. But anyway, I think it's really difficult because even with that, I really don't know from a practical point of view how these patients can eventually go from one country to the other one. Although if you follow Twitter, that I'm sure that you do that, there have been some announcements of patients arriving to the north of Italy, for instance, not for transplantation exactly, but basically for clinical care. I don't know if, I think it was John Snowden one day saying that some patients had arrived maybe to Scotland, Claire, or I'm not so sure. I don't remember exactly which was the place, but either in Ireland, of course, I don't want to mix up countries, or in UK, there were some patients arriving there coming from some of the hospitals in Kiev. So maybe that's an option.
It's also, I think, quite hard to really focus the discussions, because what, in my point of view, what we as like normal people, scientists, we cannot like discuss the whole thing, why the war happens, on which side everyone is. In my point of view, what we just can do, what you alluded to, is just help everyone that we can help. Because we, for instance, we also receive very alarming notes from Russia that like young scientists are like really cut off every support, every communication. And for me, that's a problem as well. I think that's terrible as well. So everybody is suffering. It's just horrible.
No, that's true.
The sense of fear as well on what you do hear from everywhere, and uncertainty.
That's true, because that's another thing. So, I mean, of course, we know each other, let's say a little bit, but probably not well enough to know exactly which are the political orientations of each of us. And of course, then you have the other side of the coin, which is Russia. And of course, Putin probably is not representing the whole Russia, not at all, probably only a minority. I don't have any idea. And I'm sure that there are many people suffering because of what Russia is doing to Ukraine and the rest of Europe, because we are still, let's say, as a bystander, more or less, we are also suffering. I mean, we will have shortage of many things that come from Ukraine and from Russia. I don't know in Germany or in UK, but the petrol is so expensive here in Spain. For me, it's almost 90 euros to fill in the tank of my car, and this is going probably even to be more expensive in the near future. So it's a difficult conversation, because it's difficult to get alignment in 100% of people with different background, and of course nobody wants to step on anybody else's toes, just not to make any disaster in these meetings that they are supposed to be friendly. But probably if we stick to our mission, we can find some projects that they are not very big. They don't want to solve 100% of the problem, which is one thing that probably nobody will be able to solve, but we can help a little bit, let's say, in our small parcel. So I think that this is what we should try to do, and of course try to communicate as much as possible that EBMT is absolutely against war, on the other side that we are neutral and that we are trying to follow our mission.
And next week there will be the annual meeting in Prague, which is in the eastern of Europe. Do you have any information whether this could be affected or is already been affected because of maybe hesitancy to come to the meeting, or presenters not allowed to come, or?
So the information I have, of course, let's say Czech Republic is not so far away from Ukraine. So if the meeting would have been in Barcelona, let's put it this way, we are seeing things a little bit more from a faraway perspective. There have been some changes from face-to-face to virtual. So in fact, the registration process has been a little bit awkward or different this time. First of all, because it's the first hybrid meeting that EBMT is planning. The number of face-to-face attendees has also been modified over time, because initially, just because of COVID, the regulations in the Czech Republic were quite strict. But then, they were more loose and loose. So we had the possibility to even have, I think it was 2,500 people face to face, which is basically not bad. I would say that with the war, there has been a few registrations that have moved from face to face to virtual. I'm not so sure that the reason is because people are not really allowed to travel. I am not going to enter into Russian people. We don't have so many EBMT centers in Russia, but of course there is a big one in St. Petersburg, and then there is another one in Moscow. Of course, I don't think that these people are going to travel, and people coming from Ukraine either. But I think that it's basically related to the potential anxiety and fear of people to go abroad in a quite unstable situation around Europe, which probably is more clear in Eastern Europe than in Western Europe. Then, let's say, I think that both Professor Kroger and myself, and I'm sure that other people received emails from people that were coming from far away, people from US or people from South America. Everybody is a little bit hesitant and not understanding very well what is happening in Europe. Europe might seem kind of global, which, I mean, it's not the case if we live in Europe. And sometimes what happens is maybe what happened during the ASH meeting, that just because of Omicron, there were many people saying, okay, we are not going. And that makes people saying, okay, maybe I should not be going there because my neighbor or my colleague in the hospital is not going. So it's a changing situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, despite all this, what's going on right now, we want, first of all, obviously, to thank you to come to this conversation with us. And we obviously want to talk about EBMT and other things surrounding transplant in Europe. But maybe we start a bit with you because maybe there are people, I cannot imagine who, but maybe there are people out there who don't know you, that you maybe start with your background, with your experience, how you started in med school and how you became a transplanter and cellular therapist in Spain.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the interview. I think it's really nice. I hope that I can give you the information that it's of interest. So I started quite a while ago, I have to say. And I think that from what I remember, I can say that I had very clear ideas that I wanted to go into the medical school. So it was not a last minute decision. And of course, I'm sure that this happens also in Germany and in UK, that usually the marks that you need to go into medical school are quite high. So it's a kind of, I don't know if positive or negative selection, but it's a kind of selection. So if you don't have a good mark, you cannot go into a medical school. I was living in Madrid, so I am from Barcelona. But my parents moved to Madrid when I was 11. So I did my medical school and my residency in Madrid, and then I moved back to Barcelona. So I was able to go to medical school in one of the two public universities in Madrid at that time. I really enjoyed it very much. I loved hematology, and I think that I am a hematologist because of the wonderful teachers that I had when I was at medical school. I found really, the lessons so entertaining, interesting, everything so easy to understand, why at the beginning everything seemed so complicated. That was the reason that by the time I finished medical school, I had very clear ideas that I wanted to be a hematologist. In Spain, we have this national exam that it's being done once per year. And it's really very competitive because there are not so many positions to be a specialist, and there are many people applying for this exam. And of course, depending on the number that you get in this exam, you have the possibility, yes or no, to choose the specialty that you want to do and eventually to choose the hospital. So I think that I was able to choose more or less what, of course, what I wanted to do, which was hematology. I had several options. I decided to stay in Madrid, and then I did my residency in Madrid. I was always focused in clinical hematology. I didn't like blood bank. Hopefully nobody is offended. I didn't like very much hemostasia and thrombosis. So I was really very much interested in clinical hematology and basically in malignant hematology. I had the possibility, because I am so old, it was the time that peripheral blood stem cells were started to be used, and I had the possibility to go to Heidelberg for 3 or 4 months with Professor Martin Körbling, that you may know now. I think that he's in US, but in Heidelberg, that it was one of the first places in Europe where peripheral blood stem cells were began to be used, basically for autologous stem cell transplantation in patients with lymphoma. Anyway, so this is what I did in Madrid during my residency, and then when I finished it, I had the possibility to stay in my hospital or to move back to Barcelona because I was offered a position in Barcelona. I have to say that in Spain, just because we are, well, not just because, but following this type of Mediterranean style of life, people don't move around so much. So probably the countries in the northern part of Europe, people like to move from one place to the other one. I would say that in Spain, people like to stay in the same place. But this was not what I wanted to do. So I decided to move back to Barcelona, although my family was in Madrid. And I started in this hospital, in Hospital de Sant Pau, which is a big university hospital in Barcelona, which was very much focused in cellular therapy, well, basically stem cell transplantation at that time. I think that everybody says, okay, I want to treat acute leukemias because it's the most challenging, probably, disease. But this field of interest was already occupied by somebody else when I arrived, like as a junior consultant in Sant Pau. So I said, okay, I'm going to pick up what is being left from the basket. So I decided to go into lymphoma and multiple myeloma, but always related to stem cell transplant, because the head of the department at that time was really very much interested, and we had a big stem cell transplantation activity. And I was always very much impressed with the possibility of all these high doses treatments, how patients were able to go through all the toxicity of a stem cell transplantation and potentially being cured. So that was very, very attractive. And I was there for 20 years, which that's not too bad. And at some point I said, okay, I have to move again because I am super, well, I need a change, let's put it this way. And then I applied several positions. But at the third time, I want a senior consultant in lymphomas and stem cell transplantation position in Cambridge, in Adam Brooks Hospital. So I decided to pick up my 2 daughters and then move to Cambridge. And that was for 2 years. It was a super mega change for me. So the healthcare system in Spain is quite different, or very different from the one in UK. I had to deal, from my Spanish point of view, with the complications and the bureaucracy of the NHS system. But it was a fantastic experience, I have to say. I had to go back to Spain 2 years later. That was in 2012, just because of personal reasons. But I hadn't planned to go back to Barcelona, and I don't know where I would have been right now if, let's say, these personal issues didn't happen. So I was really very happy. And I have to say that my stay in UK was, let's say, the beginning of a new situation for me. I was able to meet many people. I have a lot of friends from that time, people that I lost, and now they have reappeared in my professional life. That's also very important. I was able to improve my English, which is, of course, very important because sometimes, let's say in Spain, English as a second language is not as spread as in other countries. So that's also very important. And Cambridge is a lovely city, quite near from London. So it was super nice. So I went back to Barcelona, and then let's say I started in the hospital where I am. the head of department position was free because the prior one retired. At some point, I applied to it and I won this position 6 years ago. And now we are in March 2022.
May I ask, maybe it's a funny question, but it's just because I spent 6 months in Madrid, and in that period, it was 3 years ago, and it would be interesting whether this was also true in your time. Is in that time this final exam that you described, the really competitive one that I think maybe needs to be highlighted, because in Germany, there is nothing like that. You have an exam and then you apply for a university and either you get in or not. But in that time when I was there, this so-called meal, is it right? And you get your points and then you're ranked. And according to the ranking, you are able to choose your first discipline and then hospital.
Yeah.
And in my class, there were this 2 like genius students, and they were so intelligent. And I asked them, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to do research, or what do you want to do? Well, yeah, obviously plastic surgery. And I didn't understand why. And then but because it's paid the most in Spain. And then they stayed in Madrid and did plastic surgery, but they were like internal medicine knowledge. This was completely out of the world. It was so huge. But was that the same in your time? Or?
No. Well, no, I have said no too quickly. So the issue is that probably times have changed. The medicine in Spain basically is public. I mean, the healthcare system, not medicine, the healthcare system is public in Spain. But of course, you can have private practice, and it's easier to have a private practice and to get more money out of your profession if you are a plastic surgeon than if you are a hematologist. I think that these thoughts have changed a little bit over time. As I am significantly older, I have to say that probably when it was my time to choose the specialty, people were not so focused on money and on, let's say, earning money, or the specialties that were associated with the possibility to earn more money. But it was more like generosity, vocation, and trying, let's say, more internal medicine or medical specialties point of view. And at that point, hematology was very well seen by people that were doing the exam. So it was quite competitive. And as you have said, depending on your number in this huge list of people, you had the possibility to choose what you wanted to do and in which hospital you wanted to do your training. And there were many good positions that were basically picking up hematology. Nowadays it's different. Even in the best hospitals in Spain, the numbers that are picking up hematology are not so good, because people might be focused to disciplines that eventually give more money. And usually hematology is not the ones, with some exceptions.
And clearly throughout your career and everything, you've achieved so much, and there's exciting times ahead with being president of EBMT. But outside of work and outside of your professional life, what are your interests? How do you relax, and what do you enjoy doing?
That's a very good question, because I don't have a lot of time to relax myself. And I have to say that sometimes when I go abroad, I think, oh my God, there are so many people relaxing, so I should be doing the same. Then I go back home, I go back to my own reality, and I don't have a lot of free time. But what I like to do in my free time, basically, I like to travel. This is my best, by far, the best thing that the best thing that I like to do. I like traveling so much. Unfortunately, COVID has completely changed our lives regarding traveling. Of course, I was doing a lot of traveling because of work or meetings or whatever, but you always had a little bit of free time. I mean, to go and see this place or see the other place. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. And of course, English language is one thing that gives you the possibility to be a little bit more universal, because it is so important to be able to understand people. And these things with COVID have kind of disappeared, of course, from a professional point of view and also from a personal point of view. But I like traveling, I like music, I like art, I like going to museums. I love all these things. And I used to read a lot. I'm not reading as much as I liked in the past because I don't have a lot of time. And when I go to bed, I am completely dead or almost dead. But I like doing things which are completely different from medicine. I have 2 daughters that also, well, now they are quite grown up. So they don't need so much time. That's not exactly true, but at least from a physical point of view. And I love animals. I have 3 cats at home and 1 dog that live all together super nicely.
Mm. And your kids, are they interested in becoming doctors? Or?
Okay, so the oldest one always said, no way, you are absolutely crazy. I'm never going to do what you are doing. So she decided to do environmental sciences. She already has finished the university, and she's basically dedicated. So she likes animals very much and basically exotic fauna. So she has been 4 or 5 months in Costa Rica, looking after all the specific animals that they have there. Now she's in Parque de Doñana, which is one of these natural reserves, both for animals and for plants. So let's say she's not taking care of human beings, but a little bit of animals, which at some point there are some similarities there. And then the second one, she's studying medicine. So she's in the 3rd year.
Okay. And as we introduced you, you're the president-elect of the European Society for Blood and Marrow Transplantation. And first of all, what made you decide to run for the position? Was there a moment you said, okay, I want to involve myself? And well, maybe we speak about that afterwards. Then what are you hoping to do, mainly to focus on? How do you want to shape the policy of the society?
So my career in EBMT, it's also quite long, because I started, at some point I joined the Lymphoma Working Party, and then there was the time that, at that time, Norbert Smith was the chair of the Lymphoma Working Party. And of course, at some point there were elections, and he offered me the possibility to run for the chairperson position. I was absolutely shocked, because I would have never thought that he was going to call me. Of course, I have always been very much interested in Hodgkin lymphoma. Allo transplant, as you know, Nico, is not as sexy nowadays than it was several years ago. And I prepared prospective clinical trials on allo transplant for relapsed refractory Hodgkin lymphoma. So he came to me, he offered me this possibility. I said, oh my God, I'm sure that I will never be able to achieve this position. But I ran for the position, and I won the position of chair of the Lymphoma Working Party. I really enjoyed it very much. I think that I was able, that I worked hard enough to be able to improve the outcome of the Lymphoma Working Party. And when the Lymphoma Working Party time finished, and at that time was 6 years, so 3 + 3, the secretary position was open. And I said, okay, I really would like to continue working for EBMT. Of course, transplant has been always kind of background for the different diseases that I have been interested in. And I ran for the position of secretary. It was the other opponent was Hermann Heinzele at that time, that he had been the chair of the Infectious Disease Working Party. And I said, oh, I'm going to lose, that's for sure. And then I won the position of the position of the secretary. It was a difficult time because it was the time that I moved to UK, so it was a little bit complicated with my two daughters. But I think that the society improved. It was professionalized, not only because of myself, of course, but just because of the work of the executive committee and the board of the EBMT. And I said, well, why not trying to run for the president position? And I did that, but I lost the elections because Nicholas Kroger won the elections at the time. But I was very happy, I have to say, because I didn't lose for so many votes. So it was quite tight, the results. Now I don't remember exactly. So I continue, I was very much involved in EBMT, even, I didn't have any position in the board. I really like EBMT very much as a society. Of course, it has grown very much over time. And now it's really a big society with a big organizational structure behind, let's say, the scientific part of the society, the ExCom, the board of association, and of course, all the members of EBMT. And when it was, so I continue to be very much involved basically in the Lymphoma Working Party, where I am still as much active as I can. So when the time of the elections came back, I said, I don't know what to do. Some second times are not the best ones. This is a kind of saying that probably it's a kind of European saying, at least there is a Spanish one. And I said, I don't know if I should be doing that, but then at some point, because I had, let's say, I had picked up the position of president of the Spanish Stem Cell Transplantation and Cellular Therapy Society, I made some consultations with people, let's say, also in the kind of the society board. And I said, okay, I took my decision. I want to run for the position. It was a very strange campaign because everything was virtual. So no face-to-face conversations. And the other thing that it was a little bit complicated just because of all the GDPR and all the impossibility to be able to reach, let's say, the EBMT centers in the way that I had done before and in the other election processes. Everything was very complicated, everything was tweeted. So social media became really very important. That was the reason why I went into Twitter, because I knew that both Christian and Ibrahim had a Twitter account, and I said, oh, I need to go myself in Twitter. I'm not very active, but I said, okay, at least I have to be at the same level. And then I have to say that everything was very strange because, of course, we were looking at the results at the, through the computer. So it was not as, let's say, well, not engaging, but as nice as it could have been to be there in person. Well, nice or not nice, but yeah, I would say that nicer to be in person, but then I won the elections and I know that I have a lot of responsibility. In fact, I have had a lot of extra work since I took the position during this year of president-elect, because all of a sudden you get involved in many meetings, in many things. So I was not aware that the society from the basis had changed so much in the 4 years that I had been outside the board. So bigger structure, more people working for EBMT, new challenges, CAR-T, all the past studies, the registry that it's still, let's say, in preliminary phases, and hopefully we will be able to have it up and running in a different platform than promised. So my amount of work has significantly increased in this year being president-elect. And I guess, and Professor Kroger has told me several times, oh, you will see that it's a lot of work. And yeah, but anyway, I'm really very happy because my professional life has been very much side by side of the EBMT evolution. I mean, for quite a few years. So I'm really very proud to be able to hold this position. What I will try to do. So there are many things that need to be, many things that have been ongoing for the last few years, and hopefully they will be crystallized and at least have a happy end during my mandate. Not because I am super fantastic, not at all, but probably because there has been a lot of work behind all this process, and at some point things need to be finished and be up and running. For instance, the registry, probably that's one of the most important things. All the past studies and all the positioning of EBMT being the European registry for CAR T-cell therapy and eventually other cellular therapy that will be coming in the future. This is one thing that has also been started with the prior presidency, and this is one thing that we will need to upgrade, to implement, and to finish, and to have it in a kind of smooth situation in the near future. And this is also a very important thing. And I think that one of the big challenges that we have in EBMT is to move. So Nicholas had to move from a non-COVID era to the COVID era, well, Nicholas and the rest of the society. And I think that it will be, let's say, our future task to move back EBMT outside of COVID-19, if this happens, which I really hope that this is going to happen. So there have been many things that have been implemented. We have learned many things from our COVID-19 pandemic era, and for sure, we will be keeping some of these things as the rest of the society. We have learned many things being virtual, and I think that being virtual or virtuality has a lot of positive aspects, but we cannot rely on virtuality. So we have to make the effort to go back to face-to-face in a similar way that we were doing in the past. So this is one thing that we will have to undertake in the next few years. And many of the aspects of EBMT, for instance, I was thinking about JC. So JC has suffered very much from COVID. So this is one thing that we will have to tackle also in the near future, to try to move JC back to what the situation before COVID-19, and probably implement things to make JC more competitive. And the other important thing is that we have to work more and more in EDI. So it was last Tuesday, it was the Women International Day, and I think that we really have to work on that. I think that the world is trying slowly to move in this direction, which of course it's not only, I would say that gender issues is an important one, probably is one of the easiest ones, let's put it this way, to address, because probably it's more visible, but there are many other things that need to be done. And in this sense, I think that we have to move this way, and we have to make EBMT even broader and more global than it is right now, but not global only because of world, going to China, which is absolutely fantastic, going to South America, which of course is one thing that it's especially interesting for me because my Spanish is much better than my English, and language is very important. Well, it's crucial for communication, but globally it's not only this concept, but global is being able to embracing everybody that wants to work in stem cell transplant and cellular therapy. And I think that this is one pending aspect or partially pending aspect in which we have to work in the near future. Many things have been done, or some things have been done already in the past years, but we need to crystallize them and to make it more solid, stronger, and to make a really global and global society in the next years.
Does the EBMT have an office in Latin America?
No.
No, not yet. Okay.
No, not yet. So we have this office in Shanghai that was opened. I don't know exactly when. That unfortunately, probably nobody or almost nobody has been able to be there. In fact, there was a kind of EBMT China office meeting that was cancelled, and it's organized, I think, that for the end of June, and it was basically cancelled because it was going to be face-to-face in China, but because of COVID, the face-to-face meeting in China was not a possibility, so it was basically cancelled. So probably if COVID allows us, the Chinese office and the EBMT objectives for China should be implemented, but there is no office in South America. So this is one thing that we may think for the future. Of course, it's very easy to say, probably not so easy to do in practice.
And may I ask what the role of these offices is? Is this just to like enable collaboration, or do they have like really structural purposes to, I don't know, gather data or exchange data, or what is the role of these offices?
Well, I think that basically the role is to transport the mission and the vision of EBMT there. So basically working in education, working in science, promoting EBMT membership. We have quite a few big Chinese centers because they have huge transplant numbers there, and that are already members of the EBMT. And of course, being member of the EBMT allows them, and of course us, to exchange information. I mean, with all the regulatory issues that we have nowadays, being an EBMT member and signing the adequate joint controllership agreement allows us change data more easily. So basically is to transport the mission there.
I think all sounds really exciting, and it's something Nico and I have been in touch with some of the LA BMT and we've had a few meetings with trainees based over in those countries. And I think the pair of us, the first time we met and were discussing with trainees, we hadn't really, I think we were both quite struck by how different the experience is, and how some things that we just take for granted as being able to deliver and give in working where we do, that you don't even think about, and the challenges and how they're trying to adapt to overcome those things. So definitely moving forward, that will be something that's really exciting and worthwhile. I know you've mentioned a lot of difficulties and challenges. Is there anything you think will be the major barriers when you come to being the president? Is there anything you're particularly scared about or worried by?
Well, the first thing is that I don't know if I will have enough hours during my day to dedicate enough time to EBMT, and of course to other obligations that I cannot forget. I'll try to do my best to organize my time in the best possible way to do what I have to do. Of course, let's say Europe is so big that you always have the feeling that you are not able to have everything under control, which probably this is not the objective. It's very important, to be able to trust in people that are working with you, because this is the only way that you can delegate things correctly, and this is one of the things. So I think that, let's say, the president task is kind of supervise everything, but of course not to do everything on a daily basis, because this would be completely crazy and completely impossible. But it's not that I am scared, but I think that it's really a big position. You don't sometimes, if you don't step into somewhere, you really don't realize the amount of work that it represents. So it's basically looking at the position from the distance probably does not give you a clear idea of which will be the amount of work that you will have to do, the dedication and all these type of things. So I am always very optimistic. There are excellent people working in EBMT. I'm sure that I will have a lot of help from everybody. And of course, I will try to, let's say, to bring EBMT in all these things that I have been discussing. And I'm sure that many things that will be coming in the near future, and probably I have not put in my, I have not included in my wishes basket. They will be coming in, and we will have to solve them.
Do you have any advice, because you strengthened that it is a lot of work already and it will be a lot of work? Do you have a certain strategy? Do you have a certain plan for your days, what you want to do? Do you have a schedule, just for people maybe to understand how you structure yourself if you are facing this kind of pressure? And
I have to say that I don't know exactly how to answer your question. I have quite a well-structured mind. By the way, I like starting my day super early in the morning. For me, it's the best time of the day when nobody's in. Then you have some hours of peace that you don't have any telephone, nobody, let's say, interrupting you. And I think that this is very important. I think that within EBMT, there is already a structure that allows, in this case, the president to be aware of what is happening and what is important for him or for her to know and to understand. So EBMT life is quite well structured, and I think that from the very beginning I will be picking up this structure that it's already in and has been working for many years. Maybe I'm going to modify it a little bit, because not everybody works in its own way. But the first thing is that I'm going to pick up this structure and work with it and trying to accommodate in the rest of my life. Probably if we have this conversation in 1 year time, I can give you a little bit how I have put in practice all these thoughts that for the time being are already, let's say, something that I am thinking about.
Well, we thank you for your time and for your elaborations. It was really, we really look forward to have you. It's really, really nice to talk to you. I don't know whether you saw it on your emails in parallel, but we just received an email that EBMT won't happen in person. So Claire and me, we are not lucky to meet the first time in our lives.
Maybe you'll have to come to Manchester.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, I knew, but I was not supposed
Okay.
to give any information. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, it's really a pity. For the third time, we will have to go virtual. This time is not COVID, but I would say that probably more complicated issues in Europe. It's really a pity that we cannot meet each other face to face, because the screens are perfect, or more or less perfect, but it's not the same thing. So we will have to wait a little bit longer to meet each other. It has been really a huge disappointment. And of course, these are really fresh news. And I really didn't know how to handle exactly this interview, but I said, okay, I'm not going to say anything. And at some point, let's say the information will be coming up in the emails of everybody. But anyway, so I am really very happy to work with you. I will be very happy to work with you. One thing I have not mentioned is that what I think is very important is mentorship. And this is absolutely important. This is one of the key issues of any scientific society now, because we are talking about EBMT, but of course, if you go back to your team, mentorship is one of the key issues. And this is one of the things that has been promoted for many years in EBMT. I think that nowadays has probably a more structured way of promoting mentorship and bringing new people into the society. This should be one of the successes of the society. If you have a society or a team where there has been no mentorship, this is a kind of failure, because at some point you have to leave your legacy, let's put it this way, good or bad or intermediate, but you have to give your legacy to somebody else's. And this has been structured with the trainee committee in EBMT. And I think that it can be further developed, not because it has not been done well, it's just because it's quite new. So it's quite junior, all this project, but it can be, I would say, that further developed in many, many aspects within Europe, outside Europe, with scholarships, with fellowships, to try to transmit the knowledge in physicians, nurses, all the healthcare allied people dedicated to stem cell transplant and cellular therapy. So we'll do it virtually and hopefully face-to-face very soon.
You just say what we think. So we are on the same page.
Exactly. So I didn't want to leave the interview without mentioning that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. And we hope to see each other sometime this year in person.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Have a good day, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.